Hi everyone, and welcome back to Second Rank Fire. You've probably not heard our voices in a little while. I'm really sorry. I'm Ben, and this is my co-host Dave. Hi Dave, how you doing?
Evening all, how's it going? See you back from the dead, I see.
Yes, it's definitely 100% my fault. We've tried to record this. I think this is the third time we've tried to record it, something like that.
Yeah, it's alright. It's loads of 0-1's corrupted file. The Mechanicus didn't want us to send this out, so it's fine.
Yeah, that's definitely how I felt. Yeah, so I had a little break over Christmas. I got quite a bad chest infection, so I decided to sort of take a little bit of time off and make sure that I could recover and stuff like that. So I'm not as ill as I was. So happy days. I can talk again. I can breathe. So we're back, and yeah, we've got some slight changes to the way that we're going to do the podcast, but we'll kind of get to them as we go through it. So yeah, we'll start off where we always start off, and that's so what I've been up to recently. Dave, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. So, well, as Ben said, when Christmas hits, some reason my hobby just takes a nosedive off a cliff, as they say. I don't know why. I just think where I finish work and stuff, I just don't have no time for painting, priming. It's getting dark now, late or early in the UK. So there's no priming, and I got a bit lazy, as all people do in December. But now hit the ground running now, New Year. So I'm gonna start getting some stuff done, as they say. But in between everything else, I'll be I'm helping my girlfriend, who you've probably seen, getting into the hobby and stuff. So I've been showing the godsend of Slapchop, which is quite.
Yes.
I think it's a lot forgiven for her because she has mild cerebral palsy down her left side, so she's only got one use of one hand. So it's quite interesting and easier for her. And I made a lot of random contraption, which is Mach 1, but I'm gonna try to see if I can stick it to a turning table, so it can turn the model for her. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a really good idea.
Because I bought the GW stand thing with the little arms.
Yeah.
I bought 2 of them, so she's got like 4 arms to grip the model. But then I clocked when we were doing painting about 2 nights ago. I was just showing her the ropes and stuff. And it sort of realised that she couldn't turn the model because of one hand, obviously. So, that spinny table that I previously got here, which I used probably about once for my AOS stuff. I'm going to stick this thing on top of it and see how that works. See if that will improve and help her. But apart from that, I just got a few tournament in April. So I'm potentially working on another 60 horses. Or 30 horses.
40k doubles, isn't it, that tournament?
Yeah. It's in Worthing. Me and my mate Will going. He's taking Tyranids, like Von Ryan Leapers. It's like very Lictor style. So it's going to be quite a fast moving army for us. And apart from the 5 Rattlings, just to hold the backfield, as they do.
Yeah, you need a home objective holder, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just leave it to the toughness 2 guys. Just hold the backfield. But yeah, so I had to retweak my list a little bit because before they even got out of the stables, my Death Riders got a points increase for the new data slate that came out today.
Yeah.
Which was really infuriating because I can't have the Marshal. So I'm down I lost a horse. So I've got 61 horses in my 1K. So I'm hoping the new guard stuff will officially drop before the tournament. But if not, it's a secret project that will take over. So I'm having 2 armies on the go, if that makes sense. So, but that's apart from me. What have you been up to?
I stayed relatively active over Christmas. Obviously, being ill, I had to sort of take a break from the podcast, but I carried on painting a little bit. So I've finished all of my testers for my chapter challenge. So I've talked about that quite a lot on my Instagram. Did I talk about it? I don't think I talked about it. I don't think I even had it the first episode of this. That wasn't a thing. No. So yeah, the chapter challenge, for those who aren't on my Instagram or haven't been sort of paying attention to it, is I've sort of picked up. I've had some assorted intercessors for quite a long time, just through like the old magazines, stuff like that. And so the idea was just change it up a little bit and just have a go at having a play with Slapchop and seeing if I could do different chapters. So the idea was 10. I think I've knocked it down to 8, just based off the models that I've got. So it'd be eight chapters. So all of the testers are done. So there's quite a few different ones in there. So there's like Imperial Fists. So there's an interesting way of doing like yellow. So using like a pink dry brush underneath, stuff like that. Sides of the Emperor. So that was a fun one. That's yellow and black. So 2 interesting colours. Chloe, Lady Kane, she challenged me to do Emperor's Children. Obviously with Emperor's Children coming out this year. So there's one of each. So I did a purple one and a pink one. The purple one I'm going to do as the Dark Kraken chapter. So that was identified as by Jim. So Jim, who is on Discord and quite often interact on Instagram, stuff like that. That was one of the ones that he suggested, which is like black center and then purple, quite like a dark purple. So quite a few of those. I guess since the last time I did the majority of my Terminators. So I think I've got 5 more Deathwing Terminators and the Terminator Captain left to paint from those original Terminators. I've put those on the back burner because I've got enough Terminators to run my pure Deathwing 2K list. I decided I want to paint something other than Terminators for a little while. So yeah, off the back of that, I then went and primed 50 models, something like that. So I had a load of intercessors. The chapter challenge sort of were included in that. So I think there was 20 intercessors, 20 assault intercessors. I did a Kit Bash Dark Angel Captain, and then maybe if like the Gravis Captain, stuff like that. So there was a few characters. So I primed all of those. And then I've started my own chapter as well. My custom. So much has happened. I've started a custom chapter.
Put me to shame.
So yeah, while you stopped painting, I was like, no, Dave's not painting. I'm going to have to paint everything. So yeah, I started the Angeli Aurori. So that's my custom chapter. So it's Latin for Angels of the Dawn. So they're a custom chapter. They're an Ultramarine successor. And the idea is that they are formed from the veterans from the First Tyrannic War. And so the whole idea of them is that I can run them as kind of Ultramarines or Black Templars. So they're a crusading faction. So they're basically, rather than being like a uber anti-heretic type thing of like the Black Templar, their whole thing is being like anti-Tyrannid. And so they're a fleet-based chapter, but they're a crusading chapter, so obviously they can go beyond the codex and things like that. But yeah, so I'll be taking characters from both. So like the Gilliman that I painted up as well in that time, I forgot about him. I painted up like a dark Gilliman. So the idea is he's like a heretical Gilliman, but I'm actually going to be using him in that as well. And then I'm going to try and pick up some like Ultramarine specific characters and do them in my scheme. So maybe I might pick up like Marnius Calgar, and then the other half is then I'll be running them as Black Templars. So I'm quite interested in like Helbrecht as well. I'm painting up in a similar scheme. But yeah, so it's like I got the idea. So Norm, who's at Dyson Pigment, he runs a custom chapter competition every year, and I haven't entered yet. But in 2024, I had an idea. I was walking the dog at sunrise. It came up, so it had like a really beautiful orange and then like a blue coming down. I was like, that would be a fantastic scheme. Doing all this slap chop, all the chapter challenges, kind of giving me the skills to do that. So it's all dry brushed. So it's got the orange blends into the blue, so it goes into kind of a white in the middle, but it kind of blends. I'll put a picture up for those on YouTube. That's all done with dry brushing, and then you're just using washes over the top. So no contrasts on that armor at all. There's contrasts on like the leathers and stuff like that. But yeah, so it was a slightly different technique, but it's all stuff that I learned from doing all this slap chop stuff. So yeah, I've been a busy boy with my painting. That's for sure. Yeah, I mean, you touched a little bit on the competition, the tournament you're going to. Have you got anything else that's sort of coming up? I know you won't say anything about your secret project just yet, so we won't talk about it, but Dave does have a secret project going.
Fingers crossed, I do get it done. Apart from my the secret tournament in Worthing, I've entered. I don't know if the listeners probably haven't seen, but it's called the Apothecary Challenge thing, which I'm working through at the moment, which is like a charity for kids in Spain. They're going to raffle everyone off. I think it's a great cause. I'll give
It's a
them a
great
shout
cause,
out.
yeah.
I'll give them a shout out in the podcast and stuff like that. And I'm sure Ben will add like their Instagram, or I'll email Ben the Instagram account over to him.
I've been chatting with them. I've shared them quite a lot. So it's the Apothecarian on Instagram. I've been sharing it on my stories and stuff like that. But I'll put a link to there on them below.
Yeah, so I'm pretty much nearly done. I've done like a untraditional apothecary, I would say, because he's not all white. I've gone with a salamanders chapter because I just like green. I don't love green that much to do Dark Angels at the moment, but I like green enough.
Not yet, you get in there.
And if you've seen on my Instagram, he's got one arm which is still the chapter colour, which I think it would quite be a nice breakup from the white, and there's still the iconic black backpack which all salamanders have. So it's that transition, not a transition period, but you can see he's a salamander without having to worry about iconography and whatnot, because I wasn't going to waste a lot of money getting like random shoulder pads off eBay, which I didn't need to. And to be honest, it's actually quite a nice breath of fresh air painting it. And I was a bit concerned about because this model is the first model I've all used contrast paints. I've never touched contrast paints ever.
Yeah, you're a speed painter, aren't you?
Yeah, and it is good, I must say. They could learn both from each other, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
So
sure.
I think I like the metallics in the speed paints. I think they're fantastic. They're probably the best ones out there. Because I'm learning while I'm teaching my girlfriend painting as well, contrast, because I'm trying to work out in my head what colour's gold in contrast, because it's no distinct, defined name. I think it begins with an N. I think it is. I can't remember what it is. I'll see if I can find it later. And it's completely, when you look at it, it looks too dark. I'm like, let's give this a go. As I was painting like a dead salamander on his base, but it turned out to be alright. But nah, it's like the white over the grey dry brush, I think pulled off the griminess look. It's not pure white. It's more like a gritty white, if that makes sense. But I did go a bit more heavier on the last two stages of the dry brush. So it pops a bit more, if that makes sense. It's not, because I think I've done it too light on my Death Leaper, where it goes into the recess dark too quickly. It's not like an easy transition, if that makes sense. From photos, it doesn't look like I washed it. It's still grey, or a grey white. I'm like, but it's alright, trust the process, it'll be fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I've obviously, as part of that chapter challenge, White Sky is one of the ones I did, and I posted it, and that was probably the one that I liked the least. That apothecary white contrast does not go over black at all. It like pulls really badly because it's almost a semi-translucent. It's almost like it takes a white and darkens it down to it. It's a really weird one. Like most of the contrasts are kind of about sometimes brightening it up, but really pushing that colour. The apothecary white is grey. It's not white, and so it goes over white quite well. But when you put it over black, it genuinely really struggles, and I hated it. I hated that process.
Yeah, I must say it's definitely false advertising on that one. It's like you think apothecary white, not pure white, but just off white, like not Ulfon grey. Is it Corax? Is it Corax white? Is it?
That's the one.
Between just below, I think Corax is just got a hint of grey in it. Underneath the White Scar, I think it is. I can't really remember. Yeah,
the White Scar is like the horrendous one that nobody ever wants because it just solidifies and it's rubbish.
But to be honest, I use White Scar to do the last dry brush on my models. I don't know why. It just seems like that quite nice. I don't overdo it though with it. It's such a potent white.
It's quite a watery white, so it probably work quite well for that. Yeah.
It doesn't matter how much you shake that colour. It doesn't seem to not thicken, but just go like a right contrast colour. Like it doesn't stay consistent.
Yeah, definitely. I know that I use an AK white, and I think my friend has picked up the Pro Acryl. Is that right?
Okay. Yeah.
He's picked up that one, and he's a really good painter. He said that's the best white he's ever used. He said like it recombines really nicely. It like really holds it. It flows really, really nicely.
Okay.
So yeah, that one's supposed to be pretty good. Yeah, yeah. Finding a good white is a pain in the backside, and yeah, I do think through that white scar sort of process, definitely if you can, I think actually if you want to do a slap chop white, and you want to do it a lot, I would prime grey rather than black. And it would be a much brighter one than you'd probably see than in any of mine. Mine are relatively, mine are probably a little bit darker than yours. I think in terms of our sort of slap chop process, I think yours are generally slightly whiter than mine.
Yeah, I just don't know any different I do from what you do. It's really weird because slap chop, because I look at Heresy is my therapy, who I've got the idea from.
Yep.
And his is just beautiful.
His is insane. Yeah,
I'm like,
insane.
And with mine, because I can see the fault in it, but I'm not too fussed. I'm not a painter. And I was like, yeah that looks alright, arm's length, I'm done. And it's just transition. I don't know if he does wet dry brushing. I would love to pick his brains and throw him some questions, or if he wants to come on the podcast, so we can like pick his brains and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because I think he's definitely motivated a lot of people who I've motivated through myself, through other people, through Slap.
Myself included, yeah.
Yeah, and it's definitely, because I was trying to explain this to my girlfriend who's learning Slap Shop, because I have to do half the process for her. And I went, if you learn the old way, I say old way, God, it makes me sound old. If you learnt the traditional classic way of painting, you would lose interest. You wouldn't do it. And
it's quite a learning curve. That sort of traditional using glazers and using stuff like that is such a high learning curve. It's hard. I'm not a good painter in the traditional way. What I do is always it's not even average. It's like it's hard. It's genuinely hard. Slap chop is definitely a lot more forgiving. But I think you're right. Heresy is my therapy. It's like a perfection of slap chop. And I think getting to that point, I think a lot of people are derogatory about slap chop. Yeah, a lot of people think it's cheating. It's not doing it properly, stuff like that. If you go on Heresy of My Therapy, have a look at the models he does. They are incredible. He can get slap chop done. Josh is the same. War Hipster, like the techniques he uses, he's not using traditional. Like his contrast plus, he's not using traditional sort of old school paint methods. A lot of his sort of lean more towards slap chop. It's not true slap chop. It's slightly different.
It's like a mixture, isn't it, between the two, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think like those guys, like the stuff they pull off is just incredible. And I think you get personally, this is my opinion. I know there's a lot of people disagree. I think you can get a much better result at a much more amateur level from slap chop than you almost ever will going any other way.
So, do you feel like GW should encourage it as well? Because they don't mention this at all.
They are so set in their heavy metal. I don't think they ever will. I think they should.
Because my daughter, shocking now, whole family will be doing Warhammer soon. My daughter wants to start playing because she wants to play with me and stuff. And I'll teach her the slap chop way. I'll let her do everything and stuff like that. I feel like if they show two ways of doing it, say like, because not everyone's the same when they come into the Warhammer. Everyone's, as we went into when we were kids, complete novices. And if they told us there's two ways you can paint from the get-go, you can go the old school way, which is like heavy metal side, take your time, blend, glaze, and all that stuff. Or are you a gamer? Right, you can go this way. And I can guarantee you probably see the revenue shoot right up.
They tried to do that with contrast though, didn't they? I think that was the whole thing about contrast, is when they brought it out, they were like, look, you can get this, you can spray it, you can put contrast on it. That, for me, that was almost their way of doing that. So rather than using like their slap chop to try and bring out that detail, they've just sort of gone, cool, just spray one colour, do it all in one colour, which is not bad. I mean, go and look at Lady Kane's stuff. All of hers is she started to do more under dry brushing now, but all of her original stuff, that was all single prime, contrast over. Yeah.
Because I was a bit iffy when they brought all that out. I was like,
Yeah.
So it's like, where's the transition? Like, you know, it's like it's got to be in the recesses like, of your elbows or whatever. It's got to be like almost like black or like a darker red or darker skin tone. But no, but yeah, we'll probably lose viewers now. It's like you're not painting real and all that stuff now.
I don't care. There's not that many people that watch or listen anyway. So
No,
it's one of those things. Like Jack was a prime example of it. So the interview I had with Jack, he is not a fan of Slapshot. He grew up doing traditional painting. He's always done traditional painting. Jack's an incredible painter.
is this
So yeah, he's not a fan of it.
is this Orc Jack?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
He's an absolutely fantastic painter. Sorry, I'm going to cough again. Absolutely fantastic painter. And yeah, he just doesn't like Slapshot, and it's fair. He's like, look, if you want to do it, it's completely your way of doing it. I do think, even if you were to perfect it, say you were to take Josh or Heresy's My Therapy and stuff like that, they were never going to go and win a traditional competition.
No.
Almost never. That's just not. You almost need a slap chop competition, just for us lot who suffer the slap chop. Like genuinely, the mindset in the community is so heavily set towards that more traditional way of painting. And do you know what? I get it. Like, I do think the quality that you can get at that real top level, you doing glazing and things like that, the more sort of traditional top level stuff, I think will almost always be better than anything you can do in Slapshot. It will be. So I get it. But yeah, when you go on you go on comments on YouTube and YouTube and Instagram, stuff like that, people are genuinely derogatory about Slapshot. They're just like, why are you doing it? It's a waste of time. You're like, well,
for me personally, I've not come across anyone in that community and stuff like that have like proper slated Slapshot, which is, I've always like shout out to people, whereas like it doesn't matter what other people think of your paint job. It's like if you like it, that's all I care. That's all you care about. Don't worry about everyone else, because there's no borderline in this hobby or rules that you need to be at this or this needs to be at this or whatever. So you know, it's like it may not be like consistent, like say the robes are matching the other part of the robe. So if you want to paint it a different colour, paint it a different colour. So I was on, as you do, deadly TikTok, I was scrolling through it, and I saw a pink marine army with like bow ties on the back. I'm like,
fair play.
If that's you, you know. And I've been forwarding it out to people like that. It's like, look, doesn't matter what you do if they're getting into the hobby. If you want to paint a certain way, you know, it's like for like a elder, for example, I was saying you don't have to paint the same colours as on the box.
Absolutely.
If you want, you can flip it on its head and say, God forbid, Eldar players will probably burn me at this, but I have orange Stroke and Scorpions and green Fire Dragons for shits and giggles, you know. But that's one thing. Luckily, I haven't seen, and I think it's been nipped in the bud in this community on the Instagram. There was going through a phase where a female artist, it was picking up that everyone's like against female artists on Instagram, and it's sort of died down now because the other community members have sticked up for the other people. Yeah, you know, because there's no place for it. Even GW got involved. So I mean, put a message.
I do think it still exists, and there are still. We won't go into too much. I do think those pockets still exist. I mean, so Chloe's. I could keep going back to Chloe all the time. If you go and check out some of the comments that sit under some of hers, some of them are, some of them aren't the best. They're not. She's got so many followers at this point. I can't remember how many. She's over 25k now, something like that, 26, 27k. There's a few in there that they're not that positive. I mean, I do get it on mine. My Instagram's nowhere near big enough to sort of pick up that.
We're nobodies, mate. It's all right.
Yeah, I think I'm at the point where people just rather just unfollow, and I'm just like, yeah, fine, I don't care. Couldn't care less. But yeah, no, people like actively. I think part of the issue is probably because Chloe's stuff is so big. Her reels. And this isn't just Chloe. There's plenty of other painters out there. Her reels and things like that were getting such a big audience that it was just getting pushed onto people's feeds. And so I feel like a lot of the comments that she was getting was from people that don't necessarily follow her. I think it was one of the big issues of getting too big on Instagram. Is it feels like when you kind of our size, I mean, even up to sort of 10k, you can probably not get maybe like 5 or 6k, you can kind of curate what your Instagram is and sort of who sees you and things like that a lot easier. You're almost not in that algorithm yet for Instagram just to feed it out to everybody. When you start to get beyond that, because Instagram's then flowing it out to a lot more people, you're going to get a lot more of that sort of negative side of the internet. I think Instagram's good for it. I don't think there's as many. But yeah, definitely, I have seen a few, and because I'm quite close with Chloe and stuff like that. That's why I keep going back to her. I've actually had conversations with her about it, not recorded. And yeah, about the sort of stuff that's on there and still exists. It's weird, but I'm similar to you. If you do it however you want. I played a game last week, and it might have been the first time in 4 years that I played a game with a fully painted army.
How did you feel?
What? I felt great. I felt absolutely great. And yeah, it was like 95% of it was slap chop, and so loads of people would have been like, "Oh, slap chop." So I played at Cryptic Cabin. The guys over at Cryptic Cabin, it was like Russ and Charlie were over there. So Russ owns Cryptic Cabin, and Charlie's his partner. Super complimentary about it. My mate who I played, Duncan, he has an NMM Custodes army, absolutely stunning, to the point where he goes to like tournaments and stuff like that, and he will like put his army in fight best painted. People genuinely ask him if he painted it or he got it done professionally. That's how good he is. And even he's commented on it, saying like it looks good. It looks like a coherent army and stuff like that. So yeah, it was good. It was nice, and that's because of slap chop. I wouldn't have done it otherwise. So I don't care. I don't care what people
nice
say.
to get when you get comments like that. And so I had a few judges at the AOS event last year. Kept coming back to my army, picking more models up, and I was like, I'll be amazed if they got it in the cabinet for best army nominee. But I was so close. But yeah, it's like when you look at it from from when you're standing up from at a table, it looks decent, as you said, coherent. Yeah. It's consistent throughout. Because if you've done the dry brush right at the same time on all of them, then it'd be very hard to notice any slight difference if you added a bit too much white on this one or too little grey on that one, But yeah, it's if you don't notice it, or you're not known to the slap chop method, you probably think, "Oh wow, this is amazing! Yeah. How did you do that purple?" And you don't. Oh, it's only slap chop. I just did 4 colours and wash paint on it,
Yeah.
And it is nice to get compliments like that, And yeah, because I've literally put my Raven Guard in the cabinet over the last week, over the weekend or a couple of days ago. And that was all old school painting. I was like, how the hell did I do that? Especially like the white armour and stuff like that. Like Shrike has both white arms and stuff like that. I did it from scratch. So grey, mix a bit of white in, and work your way up to pure white. Oh, Jesus Christ. Whoa.
I just couldn't do it. I've not got the time. I guess that's the other thing that's probably there is you see a lot of these elite painters. I've said this time and time again. Golden Demon. I would be surprised if that was won again by somebody who wasn't a professional painter. Somebody who can paint all day long, whenever they want. They can just paint. They get paid to paint. I'm not like that. I've got 2 kids. You've got a family. You just don't have time. You've got a job. Yeah.
And if I say hand on heart, if I didn't find slap chop sooner, I probably would be on a massive burnout of the hobby because I wouldn't have time to. I'll probably still play with grey plastic models.
Yeah.
And be like that guy on TikTok, make videos. and just sing stuff like that. But yeah, so I'm glad I found it, and I haven't gone back since. As you know, I've converted you, I've converted Chris, and converted Ian, who's all part of our Discord and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, it is an eye opener.
Yeah, I got to say, I got a few comments when I was like, I'm going to do my Space Marines like this. Because that's always the one big thing about Slapchop. Everyone's like, oh, you can't do it. Big armor panels doesn't work. And I'm like,
Yeah.
We'll see. We will see. Seems to be working so far for me.
I was surprised when I did my apothecary with my white and stuff like that. And I was quite surprised. I'm still a bit dubious about big tanks. If I did like
I've
stuff
got
like
a Redemptor. Yeah, I've got a Redemptor that I want to try on soon.
I feel like the Redemptor wouldn't be too bad because it's only the flatter surfaces are on the shoulders and potentially the knee pads, maybe.
They've got like panels down the sides of the arms, across the top of the shoulders. There's a few little spots here and there, but to be honest, I think GW's done quite a good job in terms of their Space Marine design. When you look at like an Intercessor compared to like a Tactical Marine, I feel like there's a lot less like solid panel. There's a lot more. It's all broken down. There's a lot more detail in it and stuff like that. Like they break it down a lot more. In reality, as an armor should be, you can't just have one big flat panel because physics tells you that's not how you get maneuverability.
Yeah.
So the new models do work quite well for it. Yeah, I think you're right. I think some of the big tanks, but I think that might be where I start to transition towards like wet blending, dry brushing. Sorry. Because you can get that smoother. That's the issue, is when you don't get that smooth blend between that dry brush stage. It kind of doesn't set the base, whereas wet dry brushing sounds quite counterintuitive. Should give you that much better blend.
So do you add like contrast medium to your contrast paints?
I haven't.
Maybe that could help in the big panel where it's a bit more thinner, not thinner, but it changes the consistency of the colour, if that makes sense.
Heresy is my therapy is the prime example of that. Like I am hella lazy. Anybody can tell you this when it comes to painting. If you're using contrasts and using a Slapshot method, my recommendation would be go and follow Heresy is my therapy. He will show you how to use medium to water down your contrasts. Yeah, we should do it even on small panels.
On my apothecary, I've started using it, and it does change. Like everything.
Massively. Yeah.
It's like a new level unlocked. It's brilliant.
Yeah. To be honest, I think with the custom chapter, because I'm not using contrast, that shows quite a lot. So I use washers. So all the dry brushing is done so. So I think that's probably one of the things that I've learned most from the chapter challenges. And to be fair, Heresy is my therapy. It's that using that coloured dry brushing rather than doing the sort of black, grey, white and doing that transition there. Using like colour instead. So the custom chapter, top to bottom, is ultramarine blue, Fenrisian grey, which is like that blue, really light blue, and then it's a mix of like 50-50 mix of Fenrisian grey and the AK white, and then going from the bottom up, it's an orange, a lighter orange, and then an orange which I cannot remember the names. A lighter orange mixed with white. And to be honest, that does like 90% of your work for you, even when you do contrast on the top. The Imperial Fist is the prime example of that. Black, grey, white on an Imperial Fist will not work. If you're going to go and use a contrast, it'll turn the yellow contrast green. The black on the yellow contrast, it just because it's quite a translucent one, it will just turn it like a really weird green colour. It'll look crap. Use pinks or use yellows. It'll work a lot better.
It's
incredible. Like the amount of, so yeah, I just use washers, which in effect are very, very watered down contrasts, I guess. And that's working beautifully.
Man. Check you out.
Yeah, someone Johannes today was messaging. So today, as we're recording today, I put out the reel of the captain that I did, the captain in Gravis armor. Johannes was messaging me, but like, you need to put out a tutorial about how you did this armor. I was like, I'll pull something together. Just because I think it looks a bit different, to be fair, because I'm not using like hard lines. So there's quite a lot of armies out there that use like sectioned half and half armor or quartered armor. Because mine's not, it's like a blend of orange to blue. I think it stands out a little bit. I'm blowing my own trumpet, but I think it stands out a little bit as quite a unique sort of armor design.
Yeah, it's definitely it will stand out in the field. Like not a lot of people would have thought like that and stuff like that. So
hope so.
I was quite surprised when you posted it. I was like, I was a bit unsure at the start, but when you showed the finished model, it looks pretty decent.
It's worked well. Yeah, it's worked well. I'm quite surprised. There's definitely some like improvements that I can do to it, and like all the metallics. Yeah, there's definitely stuff I can do in text and like improve those and clean them up and stuff like that. But I'm pretty happy with it overall, so I can't really complain.
Of anything we do now, we can always improve and stuff like that. But we're all human. We're like, yeah, it's done. Next project.
Yeah. Like I've learned from this model. I'm not going to touch it again. I'm going to go and look at 30 other different ones instead. So yeah.
But nice.
Yeah. So we need to set a challenge for you. We need to go back to doing challenges. We've not talked about the original challenges because, let's be honest, it's been however many months since we did those. We both achieved those challenges, so that's good. But yeah, I don't know what to set for you because I don't even know what your secret project is. So I feel like I could set it around your Creek horses once you've got those, but 2 weeks to you've not got those yet, right? But you're having maybe you have.
So I bought this off on eBay. So I got my first set of 10.
Okay.
So you could say that. So I'm super excited to get these built.
Yeah, maybe it's to get those built and primed. Maybe that can be your challenge over the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, and so I got that going. And I did buy myself 2 boxes of the guard as well. So I got all my horses. And yeah, so I'm looking forward to the guard codex. I'm trying to avoid any spoilers or any this unit's being buffed like this and that.
Yeah, it'll always be the way.
But I should have enough points now for 2k easy because I've got my Rogal Dawn. I think I'm about 2 to 4 Lemurus tanks and stuff like that. So I should easily cover the last 1k in armoured vehicles and stuff like that.
Nice.
So it will be a sight to behold on the table.
Horses and tanks.
Just horses and tanks. Like World War II Charge Light Brigade. All over again. And I will be taking it to tournaments. I'm hoping to go to some singles in Nottingham or wherever around you are, because I've got a few friends around Bristol way. So as the doubles event sold out in 9 seconds, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people, including Jack and stuff like that, none of us got tickets.
It's
which
crazy,
is really
isn't it?
It's insane. And I
It's
sent
going to be
him
a
a
completely
message.
different group.
And I'll be like, okay, I'm taking it as a hint. I'm going to go to narrative weekends and singles from now on, so I get a chance. But I may try more of the independent scenes this year, like along the south coast and stuff like that. I know there's one in Portsmouth and stuff. So, but I'll accept that challenge to get those 10 horses done and built, primed, and maybe done in 2 weeks. It's only 10 horses.
Yeah.
Less leather straps, which is quite nice.
That's true. I'm trying to be lenient because I know that you're also doing your secret project alongside, depending on how everything goes. So, the threshold of the challenge will be get them built, get them all primed, and then if you get finished, happy days.
Yeah. Okay. Challenge accepted.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I don't really know what to do next. I know that I want to do some more on my Raven Wing. I need to go back. They're like a base colour at the minute. I got them like the 3 colour minimum to send them to a tournament. I've not touched them since. So I've not touched my Raven Wing in well over a year, something like that. So I want to go back, have a look at my Raven Wing. Definitely want to start doing some of that. I need to start videoing some of that custom chapter. So the idea with the sorry, not the custom chapter, the chapter challenge. The idea of the chapter challenge is I'm going to video all of the process and do it as like a 1.5-minute reel, something like that. So I'm going to be videoing some of those. So I need to get some of those done, definitely. And then paint some more of the chapter, the custom chapter. I've got quite a few. So basically, the custom chapter side sort of arose when. So one of my in 2025 challenges was to paint on my Green Wing, and I was kind of in my break, sort of over Christmas and after Christmas. I was like, I'm never going to run them as Green Wing. If I'm going to take my Dark Angels, I'm going to run Deathwing. I'm going to run Raven Wing. I'm never going to run the Green Wing apart from very specific units. Like Hellblasters, obviously.
Standard.
Yeah. 10 Hellblasters with a Lieutenant and Azrael. I just need another 5 Hell. I think I've got 5 Hellblasters. So yeah, I looked at all those models and I was like, well, why not do them as a custom chapter? Like it gives me a chance to do something different and to run them as Gladius and stuff like that, and not be like, oh, I really, really want to run Dark Angels and a Dark Angel detachment. It kind of gives me the emphasis to then use the buffed out of moment and stuff like that. So it just gives me a chance to play with some different rules. So that's where that came from. So yeah, I definitely want to paint more of those. Got some assault intercessors to do, some standard intercessors, and I'm going to try and get. I've dug out a load of old stuff that I've got. So I've got, what have I dug out? I've dug out 2 lieutenants, 6 aggressors, an ancient, like part of the old school Primaris ancient, and then a few other models. So I've got quite a few like old models that I've not touched in absolutely ages. So I'm going to get them reprimed. Probably not over the next 2 weeks, but that's the sort of a future thing, is to get more of that chapter ready to go.
So how much of the Raven Wing are you thinking of looking at then? Like a unit of 3 or what, unit of 6? Or?
Yeah, I'll definitely go for a unit of 3 Outriders. I want to. So I'm going to be playing against Jim at the end of this month. So yeah, I'll try and get 3 of those done. Is that going to be the priority though? To be honest, I probably should do the chapter challenge. That should probably be my main priority, is getting those chapter challenge ones done. Because I've been saying I've been doing them for ages, and I've had a few people sort of ask questions about the processes that I've used for some of the designs. So yeah, maybe like a unit of 3 Outriders, just get because they're all black, they're all primed. So I'm just dry brushing. I'm not edge highlighting them. I'm just dry brushing the highlights. So maybe I can get all of them dry brushed.
If you did the slap chop and use like the Black Templar contrast, so you still
you have to water it down. It just doesn't work. Yeah, I tried it out. You went if you just use flat Black Templar, you just there's no point. You might as well just do it black from the start. So I actually tried it. I've got one. I'll send you a picture after. I've got one where I did like green dry brushing to try and then do the Black Templar over the top to try and pull out some of the green highlights. Just went straight over it, just completely ignored any of those existed. I was like, fuck. Yeah, I was like, cool, great, okay. Luckily, I only did the rider, but now I've got to go back and go over it with all black. What I'm doing is I'm going black primed, and then I've got so in the chapter challenge, I've got a few of them that have a Black Templar, and so rather than I do dry brush underneath, but that's more to do the other colours around. So if I'm doing pure black, I'll just prime it black, probably use a Black Templar over it because it will sort of deepen in some areas and pull out in some others. And then I go back over and I use quite a dark, like a bluey black, and then go over it with a very, very light grey. I almost never go back to white. It's only very specific areas I go back to white. So it's like I do the dry brushing after as part of that. And it's done in a really specific way just to make sure it doesn't look like it's been dry brushed. It kind of accents it rather. So it's like it's picking out highlights with a dry brush, I guess.
That sounds good. Sounds like not an easy challenge, but free Raven Wing and get that video done for your custom chapter thing.
Yeah, I'll get one done. I'll try and get the Ultramarine done. How about that? That's the first easy one.
Baby steps.
Yeah. Yeah, I won't do a multicolour one. I won't start with like Scythe of the Emperor or Dark Kraken, which is just So the dry brushing becomes a lot more complex. So once I start to video them and stuff like that, people will start to see that I use different colours throughout the dry brushing. So like take the Scythe of the Emperor for example. I'll do a black, grey, white dry brush on anywhere that's going to be black or leather or. Like the gun, for example, because that'll be black or it'll be white, red rather. That's all black, grey, white prime dry brushing, and then anywhere it's going to go yellow is then all pink. So it becomes It becomes a bit more complex. But
so, what dry brushes do you use? I'll use the crypto, the store near you.
Cryptic cabin ones, yeah.
Yeah, I use those ones. So, but I feel like sometimes the smallest one is not small enough to like get into the crannies, if that makes sense. Do you use any other like dry brush, or is it just those ones you use?
So I have been using I was using my Artis Opus ones for a very long time. I have absolutely demolished my 2 smallest Artis Opus ones. Between the 2 of them, they've probably dry brushed 200 models, something like that. Because obviously I did all my scaling with them. Yeah, so I absolutely demolished those. So I don't have a small dry brush at the moment. So I have bought Cryptic Cabin ones. So I got the synthetic Cryptic Cabin ones. So they're, I guess for a reference point, the smallest Cryptic Cabin one is probably about the same size as the middle one in the Artisopus dry brush set. It's fine for me because I've got such a grim dark look on my Marines. Having those gaps, I kind of like force the brush in a little bit. But having those gaps kind of adds to that grim dark look.
Yeah.
If you want a lot smoother look, you will need a smaller dry brush for it.
So do the brushes that you demolished, do they do like a synthetic one, or is it all horsehair ones?
Artisopus is all the is it goat that they use? Cryptic use goat on their Gucci ones. I can't remember what Artisopus use on theirs. I don't think it's Kalinsky because that's just for their core brushes, their paint brushes. Yeah, I imagine it would be goat, would be my guess, but I'm not. So yeah, Artisopus don't do synthetic ones as far as I'm aware. Cryptic Cabin do. I'm going to sell Cryptic Cabin because I think they've been really, really good dry brushes. I don't know what you found. And they are literally a 15-minute. Like genuinely, them coming there has been absolutely fantastic for me. It's been really nice. I've been there 3 or 4 times now since they opened. Not much, but I didn't get much chance over Christmas. went to their opening. It was really nice. I got to see Chloe there and meet Russ and Charlie for the first time properly and stuff like that. Genuinely, really, really nice people. Obviously, they've got the shop in Bristol, so that's up in Hanham. And then they've got a shop in Bracknell, which they're just going through an extension for at the minute.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so they found it was just going really successfully. So they opened the store in Bristol and extended Bracknell at pretty much the same time. It tells you how successful they're doing, but
absolutely.
They deserve it. Genuinely, really, really nice people. I had so much time for them.
Yeah, so I don't know about you, I usually find the synthetics more forgiving because when I use their goat ones, I just found like some of the brush hairs were coming off when I was dry brushing, if that makes sense. And I was like, what the hell is this? You know?
Yeah.
So I feel like, so I don't know if you had that same issue with the goat hair ones to the synthetic ones.
The Artisopus ones, yeah. Yeah, 100%.
It's a shame that they don't do the synthetic ones in line with what they've done.
The artist guys probably don't listen to this, so I can say it. The Artisopus brushes are very overpriced for what they are. I've got a set of both, and don't get me wrong, they are absolutely fantastic brushes, and if you take care of them, they will last you quite a long time. You can get the equivalent brushes somewhere else a lot cheaper. And they'll be probably just as good. People swear by them. From is it the Windsor ones? Are they?
Yeah, I remember Windsor's were the bee's knees by the.
Yeah, but there's like another one. It's basically they're the exact same brush as the Artisopus ones. They're just not branded as Artisopus. So is
it the ones that it's got like a tiger tube pattern thing? Is it that one? Right, they're like purple. No. I
know which ones you're talking about. Yeah. No, it's a different make. It's like it's rose and something, or I can't remember exactly what it is.
We'll probably find out in a minute. What's the sense?
Yeah, we'll go and dig it out. But yeah, like don't get me wrong. I really, really love my Artisopus brushes. I think I've barely touched them because it's one of those things of like you kind of save it for a special thing. You don't because they're so expensive. Whereas if you can get something of a similar quality at cheaper, you're just more likely to use it. I've had conversations with people about it before, and that's when you're paying £70-80 for a set of 5 brushes or whatever it is. Of course, you don't want to trash them, and so like most of my stuff that I've done for this chapter challenge, and even for my custom chapter, have been my Warbay brushes. No joke, £12 from the Warbay website for 8 brushes, something like that. They're starting to get hooked now, but to be fair to them, they've probably done a good 50 or 60 models each at this point. I've absolutely ragged them. £12, fair play, guys. Like, you've done a cracking job there. I reviewed them back when I got them, and I'd still only done like sort of less than 10, 15 models with them when I reviewed them then. I've battered them since that. Like really battered them. They've had contrast all over them. I've barely cleaned them because again it's like 12 quid brush. I'm just like, if I wreck them, I'll just go and buy some more. But yeah, like they've stood up to that really, really well. I don't really use contrast with my Artisopus brushes because again, a thing for the public service announcement: contrast will trash your brushes if you don't look after them. They will pull right down into the ferrule, and they will trash your brushes. Genuinely, they are not good for your paintbrushes if you don't clean them. So yeah, my Artisopus brushes do not see contrast paints ever. But yeah, the wallpaper ones, I just do like 95% of my painting with like 12 quid brushes. I've had no issues, so
I'm a fool. I'll just stick with GW. It's what I know, and
yes,
it's
fair.
simple. So do you? I never use like the soapy stuff where it comes in like a wax tin, whatever it is. So
Yeah.
do you use that then? Do you to like clean your brushes?
So I've
Or
got
do
some of
you
the
not bother?
Artisopus one. So when I got all my Artisopus brushes, everything like that, were a gift for over various birthdays, Christmases, stuff like that. But yeah, one of the times I got some of the Artisopus, it comes just like a pot. It's like a clear liquid. So it's just like a soap lather. That's what I use. I use that one. The one you're talking about, and I can't remember the name for the life of me right now. I've been recommended that so many times. It's supposed to be so. You just get your brush a little bit wet and just lather it up in there, and then so the Artisopus one, you lather it up and stuff like that. Give it a quick clean and then get a little bit more soap on it. And then you like leave it with soap on, and the next time you come to use it, you just sort of flick the soap up a little bit. And I did my Cryptic Cabin dry brushes with it the other day. They've come out beautifully.
Okay, so I'm always a bit wary about it. I'm like, have I put too much on, or have I not done?
It's just soap. Crack up like the Artisopus instructions are. Just leave it with soap on. Like it's not like that's actually better for it because it will then start. So all that's like crusty paint that just gets on there. It will just slowly work that off. So next time you come to it, you can give it a flick, pour a bit of water on it. It should get rid of most of it.
Okay.
So yeah, crack on. Should be fine.
I'll be branching out now. Watch me go.
Okay, so we've done challenges. So you're going to do the horses, but we're both doing mounted. That's interesting this time.
I know, right? Sounds like we need a doubles game soon. It's like
we
you
do.
have all Raven wing, and I'll go all horses.
Yeah, we've got like 12, 14-inch movement across the board. Yeah, we'll see what happens. Yeah,
I wish it was 12, 14. It's only 10 for me.
it's only 10.
A horse.
I'm sure the Raven Wing are 12 or 14 inches.
Yeah, you've got the extra 2 horsepower, mate. I've only got
true,
10.
actually. Yeah, yeah. I'll have like half the number of models of you though, so maybe it's made up for it there.
It's just sticking to the Space Marine fluff. So every like 10 guards, it's one Space Marine, right?
Exactly. Yeah, we're just meeting for that doubles team. Yeah, no, we will do that. We need a game in general at some point, to be fair.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll fit one in the first quarter, hopefully.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll move on to the sort of the next bit. So this is where it's going to change up a little bit. So obviously before in the first episode, this is where we talked about news and stuff like that. And when we recorded this episode before, we did another news one, but we sort of had a bit of a think about it. And this. So what we're going to be moving over to is something that's we're going to pick topics. So every week we're going to have a slightly different topic. So for this week, for example, obviously if anyone's on Instagram, you'll see it's 40k versus AOS. We've gone hard hitting and controversial straight off the back. But they say that's what we're going to be doing. I'll talk a little bit about the future ones, but yeah, it'll be sort of like big topics where we sort of have a bit of a thing. We'll put it out to you all who listen. It'll be out on our Instagrams and comment on our YouTube, stuff like that. So we're going to announce once we've talked about this topic, we'll announce what the next topic is, and sort of if you comment about it and stuff like that, then we'll sort of pull it into the next episode. So yeah, this time around, like I said, 40k versus AOS. So Dave, which is the better game? Let's go straight into it.
All right, chuck me under the bus. Right.
Yeah, you're going to be the one that everybody hates straight off the back. It's not going to me.
It's fine. For me personally, I probably would say 40k for me. Just because I think for me personally, I love the fluff. As you know, I'm a guard book person through and through, and I'm not too much on the competitive scene. I usually go with what you like, and I try to project that onto other people. Just don't follow the train. Just be yourself and just go nuts. you know. So maybe like, because I think a lot of people feel like Rough Riders are rubbish, but I'm completely the opposite. I think they're freaking awesome. At the end of the day, on a model perspective, AOS is trumping 40k by miles in their model range.
Let's go into that a little bit separate. So I'm actually going to say the opposite of you. So obviously, as a general thing, you said 40k. As a general thing, I'm going to say AOS, which is going to sound strange. I've never played a game of AOS. Never played a game of AOS. I've never read an AOS book. Okay. I just much prefer the setting and the models and everything like that. That's like the key thing for me. Yeah, that's. Don't get me wrong. Like I really love 40k. Obviously, my page is generally built around 40k. There's a lot more AOS stuff now there than there was. Really enjoyed 40k. I'm really glad that I got into it. But my background, my history in the hobby before I took a huge break was fantasy. Absolutely loved fantasy. Never even bothered thinking about what this 40k thing was. Never looked into any of the lore until I started 40k, anything like that. I've always been fantasy. It's always been a really big thing for me. I've always collected like dragon figurines. I've always read like hardcore magic fantasy and stuff like that. Dragons, magic, anything that's as far away from this world as possible. That's what I've always been into. So that's why AOS draws me in a lot quicker. So even though I've not read a book, not played the game, it just, for me, I look at it and go, that's what I want to do.
Yeah, I can understand that. I probably agree with you on the book front. I haven't read. The only two fantasy AOS novels I read was The Lioness and a few short stories. But for like the perspective of the fantasy, I understand why people get drawn into fantasy. It's like, as you put it well there, it's like it takes you away from the current. Because 40k, you can imagine yourself easy and the environment that you're in as a 40k scene, for example. And I feel like I'm probably with you, like the fluff wise, in the book wise, I find it very hard to read it into the AOS books. Because I don't know if it's my head, how I compute it or whatever. I find it hard to pitch myself as one of the characters or in that scene, if that makes sense. But some people could be completely opposite, as we saw in our comments. I went from old world 40k and AOS, so it was all over the shop, even though old world wasn't part of the situation.
Old world wasn't, but so I got a few. So yeah, Dante, I'm going to give you a shout here. Dante immediately is like, well, what about like Kill Team and Necromunda and Heresy? I was like, let's start with the most controversial 40k versus AOS, and then we'll branch into other games. I to be honest, I don't know why I've never read or listened to an AOS book, because in theory that would be a lot more of the sort of style of book that I love.
Yeah.
I understand your thing on it about like feeling yourself in it, but yeah, for me, I don't know. Reading for me was always a thing of not being here, not being who I am. It was like an escapism. So I didn't necessarily want to see myself in that world. I just wanted to be immersed in that world. So I need to get into AOS lore and stuff like that. I think I'd really enjoy it.
Yeah.
But yeah, when I find the time.
That's the beautiful thing about this hobby. You know, everyone's got their different vision or their joys out of it. You know, so and this is just a perfect example from both ends of the pendulum. You know, it's like you like fantasy because you just want that escapism and just envision that world and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I'm the opposite end of it. And that's what makes this hobby great, you know.
100%.
And
yes. Yeah.
And I feel like it sort of fuels people for what they prefer more or less as well. Because I'm a sucker for it, as you know well, Ben. If I read a book and I get so engrossed in it, I want an army like that.
I'm the exact same. Yeah,
you know,
massively.
And hence where the Guard Love came from and stuff like that. I started reading like the Curse of the Eighth and stuff like that, the Mika trilogy, or it's got to be quadrilogy now. So the fourth book's coming out, and it just gripped me, and I instantly bought her model at 2 years ago, I think, or last year, I can't remember, at Warhammer World. I was like, I just use her on the battlefield like a commander, just like,
yeah.
But it's that, it's like with your orcs and stuff like that. I don't know what AOS army you do. Do you do one? I know you got your Skaven, haven't you? That's it.
I've got my Skaven, so I have got the Maw Crusher that I need to finish at some point. So eventually I do want to go into the Iron Jaws. I think that would be like my core. So I got the Skaven because I really loved those models. The new ones came out, looked absolutely fantastic. But yeah, in reality, my fantasy army was orcs. Orcs and goblins, but it was predominantly around the orc side of it. And yeah, Iron Jaws they just do something to my soul. I just think they look fantastic. They look incredible, and they are such like just the whole thing around them, the lore around them. It's just so much fun.
They look like a wrecking force, and they've
got
especially the what is it? The weird ones where you got one looks like it's got a flailing, like almost looks like something from the future, where it's like a sword that's broken up, or like a flail, almost like type thing. And that movement in the model, in the orcs, is perfect. And I feel like they've got the orcs now down to a T with how muscular they are. They're massive. Even
let's
orcs,
not talk about cruel. Let's not talk about cruel boys, because I don't like those. They're too Tolkien for me. But anyway,
they're just like a little brother or the middle child that's been abused like chaos. They don't get no love, so they give them a bone or two.
Just put them to one side. Let's just talk about Iron Jaws. I don't get me wrong. The Cruel Boys, I think that they are cool models. I think they sit out of place in AOS as an orc. I think they're a really sort of Tolkien, like Lord of the Rings, Hobbit type orc. Not entirely. Don't get me wrong. Not entirely, but they're a lot more around what an orc from that universe would look like compared to, big. How big a muscle can I get on an arm? That's like, they need to be huge, bulky, massive things. They need to ride boars. They need to ride cabbage dragons, because they wouldn't ride a normal dragon. They need to ride a cabbage. That's the sort of stuff that I want from my orcs.
Yeah, and you want something. It's like looking at the old world stuff, where like the wyvern, it looks like it could barely lift off with an orc on its neck, and hence why I think, like as you say, it's like the Iron Jaws. Their mounts are chunky, and you can easily envision it in your head. It's like, that thing can fly with that orc on its back, because it's
100%.
It's that visual effect. Even though the boars with the two side guys, don't get me started about that model. I just don't understand it. Model. In my head, it can't compute. But it's like the boar riders, the cab guys on their own. They're just like a chunky model.
They're cool.
And for my next AOS championship, fingers crossed I can get tickets next year for it, is it's only got 7 models in. That's it. Say Ogre Moor Tribe.
The Ogre Moor Tribes. Yeah. Okay.
Cool.
You dropped out a second there.
Oh, did I drop out? Where did I drop out about?
Yeah. You said Ogre Moor Tribes.
Oh, yeah. So, Ogre Moor Tribes is, I've got 7 models in it. That is it for my next championship army.
Hell yeah.
And me and my mates and his missus was just going to take wacky lists. And stuff 100%. Like that. And he's taken like 4 big giants, the mammoth ones, the big ones.
Yeah.
And my mate Ian is taking a Elizabeth list, just all big monsters, or I think it's a Stormcast Eternal, all dragons.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. So we're just going nuts.
I love it.
And I feel like with that, in 40k at the moment, you don't have that freedom, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I see that. I think you, as long as you don't want to win competitively, if you don't want to be like uber competitive, I think you can. I think you can take those sort of silly lists. I do my Chaos Knights list. The Chaos Knight list I take is how many big guys can I fit in the list, and then I'll just tinker with war dogs. If I want to go meta, you run 14 war dogs and you just go cool. And it's like half a carnivore, the other half a brigand, and you take a stalker because it means that you've got a character. Like genuinely, that's just this. I'm just like, I can't bother. So I think you can run those lists in 40k, but I do feel like 40k is more focused around that competitive arena. This has been going around a lot recently. Like the way that they do balance data. Right, I'm going to just caveat here. I like the balance data sheets. I think they're the right thing to do. I think they make the game significantly better than having a book, and then if it's crap, you've got to live with it. I think the way they're doing it is significantly better. Feel free to tell me that I'm a Games Workshop shill for that, but I think they're doing the right thing there. But I will agree that it is significantly more set up for competitive Warhammer than AOS. AOS, don't get me wrong, there is obviously that competitiveness in AOS, but it just feels like the game is a lot more balanced, which means that you can take stuff like your wacky lists, and actually they are still a competitive list, and there is a solid, it's just as good a chance as you winning that tournament as taking a serious list. I think AOS is much better set up for that.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that, and I'm prime example for that because I've got the Horde army of horses. Because I think I got that message from Dave. So it's interesting to see how I didn't realise how AOS is like constant attack versus defense. That's when you think about it, that's pretty much what AOS is. Because when you attack, you pretty much, if you manage to get your charges off, you go all out attack pretty much to get +1 hit, or I think it's +1 attack. I can't remember. I'm sure the rule lawyers in our community will shout at us now. But I sort of agree with Dave where I think 40k at the moment it's not getting bloated by the codexes coming out, which was in the past editions, where the codexes came out, and if you, for prime example, the old Dark Elder before they changed to Takari, where they poor buggers that didn't have a codex for like 4 editions, 5 editions, like Sisters of Battle and stuff like that. And I just feel like I don't know if you want to do that transition period. We can come back to what do you prefer. What could 40k take from AOS and vice versa?
No, it's definitely worth talking through as we're going through it. Like there's definitely stuff they can share. So yeah,
because from me, who I've played only 5 games of AOS, which was last year, that's the only time I ever played AOS. I prefer the way AOS has got rid of, or not got rid of, but doesn't have no toughness involved. You know what you hit, you know what you wound. This is your rend or AP, and this is your damage. And your damage splashes over.
Yes.
If that makes sense. In my head, I can easily envision that, because when you're, say, like a Bloodthirst, for example, you're cleaving a unit, you're not just going to kill one guy with like a 4 wound damage weapon, and you could literally wipe a unit out in one swing, which you would expect a greater demon to do that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, something that big. Yeah, like his axe is the size of, like, let's use the 40k. A Bloodthirster axe is like the size of 2 Primaris Marines. But if only 1 wound gets through, you only kills 1. You're like, eh? What? Yeah, you think you just cleave through.
If they can just like pick that out and put that into place, I feel like that'll bring Knights back into level with everyone else and stuff like that. Because I feel like Knights are still a powerhouse at the moment, where they've got the high toughness. If you don't plan your lists around with like las cannons, melters, or like melted tip lances and stuff like that, you're at a heavily disadvantage to the Knights. And if you want to play Knights, fair play to you. If you like big models, I'm not going to control your hobby or whatever. That's you. You do you. I'm happy with it. But also I feel like AOS, with the battle traits, I feel like they should just get rid of them and implore like the secondary missions, because
Yeah.
I absolutely love the secondary missions, because it makes you keep moving.
Yes.
You're not stagnant like back in like 5th or whatever editions before they brought them all in, where it was like a guard army, like you move forward, you pull a line, and you just shoot across the board. That is it.
Yeah.
And
Eighth edition was like that. And I know they brought out the was it Tempest of War at the time? They brought out the cards, but that was not part of the competitive play. Whereas I think the transition that we've got now, I can't remember if they did it in 9th, but definitely in 10th. It's all like that's how competitive play is. I agree with you, 100% the right thing to do. Yeah, I love secondary missions.
Yeah, and it makes you, and it gives a bit of character to the game. Like I was like, when you finish a game, I don't know if you have it, and I know I have it at doubles or singles or whatever. It's like, oh, you remember that moment when?
Yeah.
So I did it a few times at the AOS tournament where I accidentally just got overexcited and I totally forgot to charge a unit that I should have charged first to get onto the objective, and likewise like that, and it creates a nice flow in the game and stuff like that, and it doesn't make it stale, because I remember before they brought objectives out, you were just fighting over certain objectives, and that was it. You weren't constantly moving, or you weren't thinking of your lists and stuff like that. Say like you have like, I don't know, a Tyranid force, and your mindset is like, you know what, I'm going to have a weird wacky list where I'm just focused on secondary missions. Like you have lictors all about just being a nuisance because you can't shoot them within 12 inches because they've got like a lone operative and stuff like that, so they could be really annoying. Or you can still go down the other way, like the heavy competitive side, like you say, and just go for the juggler and just go for the throat, and that's it. And you can ignore the missions. But I feel like GW got it balanced. If you ignore the missions, you potentially could lose the game still if your opponent plays the missions and stuff like that. That's what I feel. That's only two things I feel like they could, if they could swap. I think they'll be ideal, perfect games.
Yeah, I definitely echo that.
And I feel like where 40k is getting bloated and bloated, where I think you could probably say like half the rules could go most of the time, where it's like the toughness will go, the wounds, there'll be a lot of death on the battlefield, so stuff could probably get cheaper if they're and stuff like that. So like infantry units, so like guardsmen would probably be like, I know what, they're 65 points now, but it could go down 50 points for 10, for example, because big stuff can wipe units out quicker, and likewise like that. But it is a tough one for.
It's a tough balance. Yeah, it's definitely a tough balance, and I kind of echo you on that. Obviously I've not played a game for AOS. How do I feel about 10th edition? I really enjoyed 8th edition. I've got to say, 40k, really enjoyed 8th edition. I think they did a really good job of that. As a caveat, that was the first edition that I played 40k. I hadn't played 40k before then. I know that there's a significant amount of people that absolutely hate 7th edition, but at the same time there's a significant amount of people that absolutely love 7th edition. So I get it. Either side you want to say it. I think 8th was done really, really well. I thought 9th was done quite badly. I think the start of 10th was done quite badly. I feel quite comfortable where we are in 10th right now. I think you're right. I definitely think stuff like that. I've said this to a few people. Vehicle toughness in 40k is too high. Or anti-vehicle weapons don't have enough strength. Melter is the prime example. Melter is strength 9 as standard.
Yeah, that's dog poo. That is.
Yeah.
To be honest.
How many books have you read where it's just like the Melter just literally just cleaves through the side of a tank? It's almost as if the armor's not there. Like the whole point of Melter is to go through it. Why would you not give Melter anti-tank? They've got a literal rule for it.
Because you know when, I don't know if it's like when Melters were at the threat of everything back in where it had armor value and stuff like that. And everyone was terrified of a Melter. You know, even multi-melters, because their short range increased to 12 inches. And you had loads of land speeders just flying about. Oh my god, land speeders. We haven't seen them for ages.
No.
You know? And I was a culprit for it when I had my Blood Angels. I had just like multiple units of 1 or 2 just zipping around. with melters and stuff like that, because I can't remember what the rule was. I think they had like where it had armor value, I think it's like 8 plus D6, and they'll get an extra benefit if they're in short range.
Yeah.
I just feel like they're like a bubble gun at the moment, where they're not as threatening as
huge. As a knight player, as a big knight player, somebody goes, "Oh, I've got these melters." I'm like, I don't care. You're going to be hitting on 3s or 4s or whatever you hit on, and then you're going to be wounded on 5s. I'm just like, don't care. I'm genuinely more terrified of +1 to wound as a knight player than I am strength 9. I'm just like, still wounded on 5s. If you've got melter and +1 to wound, I'm probably a little bit scared. But even then, the damage is D6 plus 2 in general. If you're in melter range, and I'll be honest, if you're in melter range with my Chaos Knights, if you're not killing my Chaos Knights, probably going to come and wreck your day. D6 plus 2 damage, like I got 20 odd wounds. You're wounded on 5s.
I can understand. So with the Rough Riders, they've got a profile where they've got metal tip lances, and I can understand them being strength 9, and stuff like that. If they were any higher, they would just be broken. And where the Knights don't get the Iron Shield, is it? In combat.
Yes.
It's more threatening in combat. Because,
okay,
if I don't charge, I'll wound you on 5s. But if I do charge, I'll wound you on 4s. And stuff like that. And it's a big threat for a Knight where it's -4 to your 3-up save.
Yes.
So you're going straight through their armour and stuff like that. But that's 99% of the time they won't get near it. If your player's smart enough, they'll just delete the unit.
Massively. Most people are running War Dogs, and so you've got enough brigands with the amount of firepower that you've got. Because I guess that's the other thing about vehicles is the firepower that comes with those vehicles. So they're high toughness, and they've got a high amount of firepower. So odds are they can take out a lot of those threats quite quickly. So I think you're right. I think the whole sort of wound damage is kind of all like a set thing. It takes some randomness out of the game, which part of me likes, part of me doesn't. But it kind of makes that a little bit. It makes it a little bit more even.
Yeah, and I feel like it will help people ease into the game a lot easier. Because it's trying to explain to someone who doesn't play dice games or finds it hard to compute what the toughness is. Because the way I only can say it is if it's, as it says in the books, like if it's equal, it's 4s. If it's 1 higher or lower, if it's 1 higher, you're 5s. If it's double, it's 6s. And trying to explain that and to get a new person to remember it is quite, I wouldn't say it's complicated, but from an outsider's perspective, it's like, what toughness are you? And you're trying to work out your maths. And I feel like if you just cut that out and just had like, you hit on this, wound on this, and you know what your opponent does, there's no.
Well, you need to know what your army does. That's the key thing for a new player. You are so focused on understanding what your army does. And to be honest, in AOS, if you know what your army does, yes, you're not necessarily going to be the most competitive player in the world, but you're not going to be as a starting player anyway, probably. If you know your army, you'll be able to play better with it because you'll know where all your strengths are, where your weaknesses are. You're right, at the minute, if you want to be a 40k player, you're like, well, I know if I take strength 3 weapons across the board, I'm then going, well, then where am I wounded on 4? Where am I wounded on 4s? Where am I wounded on 5s? Where are my strengths? Where are my weaknesses? Do I even bother taking strength 3 weapons? You even look at like Space Marine weapons at strength 4. You're having to do so much maths on like what army am I going up against? How's that going to affect it? And it's just, you have to know so many other armies to be able to optimize your list. Arguably, yes, you probably shouldn't be doing that much optimization as a start because you won't know it. But that learning curve, you have to do it so much quicker to really compete against people who have been doing it even a year longer than you. Because you just need to know so many other armies to optimize your list just to be somewhat competitive, to even have a chance of winning a game at like a beginner level.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's your thoughts on characters leading units now? For me personally, and this is another thing what I like about AOS, where characters have a presence and you're very cautious in AOS. I've learned it the hard way with the Lioness, where I've done it once. I overcommitted with the Lioness, and she just got nuked.
Yeah.
And I felt that. I was like, oh crap. You know, it's like, not only because she buffs certain units, gives orders and stuff like that, but it felt like a really hammer blow to my army. It's like, okay, I need to think now what I need to do. You know, I
think that was a bad change. Personally, I think that going to lead. I get why they did it. You were getting force multipliers in 40k that were going a bit over the top. So like Guilliman was a little bit crazy. So almost anybody that had an Imperium army was taking Guilliman because he buffed Imperium and he buffed something like Custodes players would just take him because it's like, oh, I get reroll ones to hit and I think they had reroll charges as well. They just gave out to any Imperium. Get too animated, hit my microphone. So like Custodes players were taking him because it's like, well, I get that reroll on to hit just naturally. There's no point in getting a captive. So I get it. Like those force multipliers were a little bit over the top, but now you're paying a tax to make that unit better. That's all you're doing is you're paying a heavy tax on making a unit better. You want to take these Terminators, you want them to be able to be better, so you're going to pay a tax and you're going to pay for a Chaplain Terminator armor. Arguably, he doesn't really do that much. Like chaplains are good. They will hit relatively hard. They're like 5 attacks, strength 6, -2, flat 2 damage or something like that with the Crozius. It's not a bad weapon. Arguably, it's worse than almost every weapon that sits around him in a Terminator list, a Terminator unit, because you've all got strength 8, generally hitting on 3s. So that +1 to wound is kind of what you're paying for, and it's just for that unit. And so it almost feels like you're paying for an enhancement rather than that thing. I expect, like, I guess you see it from like Guilliman and the Lion and things like that. They do have those bubbles still through their like Primarch abilities. But yeah, if you had like a captain in your force, you would expect him to do more than boost one unit. Like having that sort of character, in that zone mortalis or whatever, wherever they are, they would boost all the men around them. Yeah, you just don't get that.
Yeah, it's their iconic presence, isn't it? So where they're actually genuine leaders and stuff like that in their own ways. So I can see Girly Man leading from the back, like ordering, like haters probably gonna hate me, and like the Lion will be like
Mortarian would disagree with you.
And the Lion will be, because he's supposed to be like a knight, like he leads from the front and centre, lead by example. You know, it's one of those subjects where I can sort of see why people will be like, no, it will be like there'll be too much the same, and yes, but then if you want to, I feel it'd be like a blessing in disguise, because where it'd be like, if both systems are pretty much sort of the same but a bit different in the missions and stuff like that, so you can easily jump in between the two and go, you know what, I know how 40k works now. It's like almost identical to AOS, but not in a fantasy theme. I can just jump into that and I can hit the ground running. And just only thing I will have to learn from that setting or vice versa is the missions for match play. That's all you got to learn. And stuff like that. And yeah, it's definitely. Well, I think we went off with a big bang where it was like the big topic to talk about, because in the community there always will be a massive divide between 40k and Warhammer and AOS for some reason, but they're both the same. They're both the same ideas on the same coin, just different sides.
Yeah, different faces of the same coin. Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah,
and yeah, it's like, and I feel like GW will never do what we just mentioned, or will never take into consideration, because then they'll probably go, why have both then? Yeah, we might as well just have one. If that, for example.
But arguably, that's the decision they made when they moved away from fantasy. Arguably, like fantasy was not the same as 40k, and there was almost no way. It was rather than a. Oh God, I can't remember names now. It's not like a skirmish, which 40k AOS traditionally are. They're skirmishes. They're small, relatively small model numbers. You're kind of focused on specific characters, specific units. A lot of a single model was quite big, whereas fantasy was army versus army. You were taking big units of 20, 40, and you lost bodies. You're like, yeah, fine, that's just the attrition of war. That's because you had 5, 6, 7 units of like 40 models, and you were just like, yeah, this is like, that's how it is. So yeah, it felt for me, killing off fantasy and moving to AOS. Don't get me wrong, obviously fantasy for reasons was dying, which I'm really gutted about because it was gone by the time I came back in. I loved it. Having that many models on the board was incredible. It felt amazing. Obviously the success they had with 40k, they obviously saw the opportunity to pull fantasy in that direction, and that's what they did. I understand, but yeah, I don't understand the argument then of people being like, oh, but they just make it the same game. You're like, no offense, but it kind of already is. So yeah, it's the same game in different settings for me, really.
Yeah, and I feel like they probably need that divide to keep people having that itch to improve or know everything under the sun. Because there are people in the hobby that are rule technical, down to the T, which is fine. If that's your thing, that's great. But I'm when it comes to rules, if it doesn't, not taking the mick or it's not pushing the boundaries too much. If it's like, I don't know, if we're having a friendly game and we're like, it was a borderline between 12, it's like a 12-inch charge or 12.5 inches. And I go, just chuck it in.
Doesn't matter.
It's fine. And I'm hand on heart, I'll do it at a tournament as well. I've done it at doubles and singles. And I went, yeah, that's in. And the guy opposite me was like, I don't know. I was like, mate, it is in. Just take my advice. Just take it. And yeah, it is a tough one because we like to have like a dream boat of everything, but unfortunately, in society that we live in these days, is no system, either 40k, AOS, board games, other games like Bolt Action and other stuff like that, and Star Wars. No system is perfect.
No.
There will be flaws. Everyone can learn from each other, but they won't, because they'll feel like it's tarnishing the IP of that thing, if that makes sense. And I feel like that's what it comes down to, because then if they decided to not merge the two together, but copy and paste the rules over, then what is 40k?
Yeah.
Or what is AOS? Because you can't distinguish the two, because if they're both exactly the same, and you go, why bother playing either?
Yeah.
Then...
Yeah. Or why bother playing both? From a GW point of view, they'd be like, well, nobody play both, they just play one or the other. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I feel, obviously we focus quite heavily on the game and the play aspects of things, and obviously we ask for a lot of people's opinions. Obviously I've not seen the messages that you got, Dave, or anything like that, but it definitely feels like on my side, in terms of, let's keep on the gaming side of it, it definitely feels like there's not really a consensus about which game is better across. So I got probably 10 odd messages, something like that, and then quite a few comments. There was obviously people who've been like 40k. So Jack, I know that you are 40k through and through. I did joke with you and say that I knew you would. I'd say that you're AOS, but you're not. You are 40k through and through. There's the odd people that do that. So Jack will not forgive them for killing off fantasy, which I understand. But yeah, it feels like from a gameplay point of view, it was skewed towards 40k. Don't get me wrong, but my Instagram page is mainly about 40k, so my whole Instagram is skewed towards 40k. So the scientific background that I've got kind of said, well, the skew's not big enough compared to what the skew in my audience should be. And so it feels like even in the community that should be quite heavily 40k, from a gaming point of view, it's not black and white. People who almost always play 40k over AOS still don't necessarily say categorically 40k is the better game, which is quite an interesting take, to be honest. So I don't know if that was echoed in yours.
Yes and no. I think it's about 10% difference, roughly, give or take, between AOS and 40k. 40k just slightly coming on top. but I felt like it was not blurred, but it was still, like, as you say, undecisive, because I had quite a few people saying AOS has the better models by far.
Yeah, but we'll get onto models. That's the next thing that I want to talk about. But
which we'll
yeah,
carry on
yeah.
in a minute. But for
Yeah,
the
yeah.
game wise, they feel like 40k is just, even though it's not as best as it is at the moment, but 40k is slightly the better game. I think more on a competitive side, if that makes sense.
So I definitely agree with that. I do think that the 40k is significantly better set up from a competitive point of view. Again, I'm going to caveat saying I've not played AOS, I've not done an AOS tournament, but just from talking to people, obviously I know quite a few people who are fairly high in the 40k competitive scene. It's a really solid scene at the minute, the 40k competitive scene. It's a really well set up scene, and the balanced data sheets and everything they're doing there is very set up towards it for 40k. So I would agree with what people have said there, that 40k does have the better competitive scene.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like a lot of people will go into the 40k lore scene because there's such a vast pool of resource that you can get from the Black Library. Just touch on the friggin' iceberg of the Horus Heresy, for example,
Yes.
which leads up to the 40k.
Yeah.
And it's so rich in lore. I feel where AOS is, it's still like a baby shark in a big pond.
Massively.
In a big sea.
It's like
if
20
that makes
years
sense.
behind. Yeah, it's 20 years behind in terms of that.
It's just not slowly, but gliding, just trying to catch up. And
do you think it will?
Like, I don't think it will never catch 40k, in my honest opinion.
I agree with you. Yeah, I think lore felt like a really easy one. Well, look, let's move on to so for the gameplay wise. I think we've talked about. Let's do lore next. Lore felt like a really easy win for 40k. Almost everybody that I spoke to, they're like, lore wise, 40k. And I agree with you. I think had they not killed off fantasy, it might have had a chance. Don't get me wrong, it still would have been behind. 40k is such a well-defined universe. It's got so many books, and the Horus Heresy, don't get me wrong, there's some bad books in there, but there are some absolutely cracking books in there, and it feels like now they've completed the Horus Heresy, they're going to pull that into 40k, and the Scouring, because obviously the Scouring is the big next one, and the books they're putting out for 40k, I do think the new books for 40k have been done almost to sell models, or to meet what the model says a little bit, and that's someone whose favourite book is the new Lion book. That book was 100% matched. Funny enough, that book was. I listened to that book. You read that book, and there's definitely some passages of it, and you're like, oh, that's been written because that's what the rule said at the time. Like, you kind of know. I don't think AOS is ever going to catch up with 40k, or the 40k universe. Like, it's just too far ahead. It's too well established, and it's genuinely a good setting.
Yeah, absolutely. And how they've executed the transition and moving the storyline forward from two big events, from the destruction of Cadia, which led into the Great Rift. Then, when 10th edition drops, when Leviathan was a big thing on the scene, you can see a constant move. Okay, it's not as quick as everyone likes it to be, because they want to know what the hell is going on with these Tyranids near the Eye of Terror. Is there going to be a massive bug invasion on the Eye of Terror? That'd be dope, I must say. That'd be epic.
All those people, just take a step back for a second. It's been 25 years, and we only just finished the Horus Heresy. You're not going to get answers within 5 years of something happening. It's not going to, like, everybody moans about the Lion and Angron, the fact that the Lion and Guilliman in lore have still not met yet. There's been nothing about that whatsoever. And you kind of
because didn't it end where the Lion went to Commander Dante and he was taken into Girlyman, and it ended?
So the Lion, spoilers, it's not spoilers at this point in the Lion book's been off quite a while if you've not read it. If you've not read the Lion book, I'm about to do spoilers for it. The end of it, yes, Dante appears and reveals to the Lion that Guilliman is a returned Primarch. And so, yeah, then the aim is for them to try and get back to that. In the what were the books that came out? There was like the Lion book. Do you know they're almost like the Prior? Was it the Prior Nexus books?
What is it? The Crusade books? Them ones?
No, they brought out ones where they brought out like extra rules, and so they did do Crusades as part of that, and like storylines as part of that. But whatever, it was like a Prior Nexus book or something. They brought out like 4, and one of them was like Farsight, when they brought out the new Farsight book model. That 4th book was Farsight. In that one of the Lion, he reunites with the Dark Angels proper, and he comes to save Angron's. I never read it. I never ever got my hands on that book, and I never have. So it's just trying to go back from my memory of what I've read through wikis and stuff like that. Basically, the Dark Angels are getting a little bit battered by Angron. And so Asriel was fighting Angron, and the Lion Forest walks basically into Angron and smashes Angron in the face with the Emperor's shield. And the Lion sends Angron back to the warp.
Oh, nice.
Because that was the whole thing. Like, everyone was like, okay, then how will the Dark Angels respond to the Lion being back? So you read the Lion book, he never ever meets a modern day Dark Angel. There's loads of concern about how they'll treat him when they come back. Literally, he comes back in, smashes Angron in the face, and they just all kneel. They like instantly. They're like, Gene Father, know who you are. Cool, thanks. You're our Primarch. You're back. Like instantly, they're just like complete obedience to him. So that story did move on to that point, but he still never met Guilliman. As far as I'm aware, I don't think he's been across the Great Rift, because obviously the Lion books is on the opposite side of the Great Rift. So the same side as Baal, which is why Dante's there. Again, spoilers for Devastation of Baal, which I finished not that long ago. Again, cracking book. Really enjoyed that book. It's probably one of the reasons that I went and then painted up Guilliman, because of that. So yeah, I get it that the lore can be slow, but please just have a think about how long it took for We all knew what happened at the end of the Horus Heresy. Took 25 years to get there. Like it's going to be slow, but it will happen.
But it's like GW, they know very well how to execute a good tease, and once they've teased the Tyranids coming on the other side of the galaxy, which is super close to Terra, which will I'm waiting for the order book for Lord Solar, which I'm hoping will maybe that be Defoe, because he's been sent to the west. Is it west? Yeah, west. To stop these Tyranids invasions, just try to keep it out. But maybe 11th edition, possibly they may move the storyline a bit forward a little bit more, not too much, but just keep nudging it where it's quite nice to see. I know the Imperium has been on the back foot from when Chaos spawned and stuff like that, but they are literally getting their asses handed on every front. Just look at a battle where they just destroyed Cadia, and it just split the galaxy into, and I remember when that happened, I went, oh crap, stuff's getting real now, and it looks very grim. Now I think it's worse than the Civil War in the Horus Heresy. I think it's 10 times worse than that.
They did have the rifts in the Horus Heresy. So I know that, because that's the thing. The Lion comes back, and he's like, oh yeah, I've seen this before. It's like it's no difference during the Heresy days, and obviously like I'm not going to spoil the End of the Death Volume 3. I was about to do spoilers for the End of the Death Volume 3,
and cut.
I won't do that because that is such a significant book that I won't ruin that for people. But I think there are a lot of similarities, and I think that the universe is in a worse place. But I think that's probably partly because the Imperium in general has been so stagnant. I mean, we could talk about this for days. I am going to say, Skaven Tide felt like it was trying to do the same thing, and because so few people had that much investment in that universe, it's come as a bit of a
it went really high when it came out because there's awesome models. Then because I started reading the book, you probably have you finished that book, Skaven Tide?
I've not even started. I was just, again, I've not read an AOS book. So I get most of my stuff from like wikis and stuff like that. So I've read a lot about it in there.
So I think I started reading it, but it wasn't grasping me. Like I understand how they were like trying to do it, where the hidden realm emerged on the realm of fire, and I could see what they're trying to do. But yeah, it was hard to put my finger on it because I don't know what they were trying to like. If they went trying to just be themselves, like rather than copy something where it had like 25 years of experience of doing fluff and stuff like that from the first codexes from till now, then it would have been a lot different. But I feel like where they're trying like the big reveals, like the 10th edition, where like when the Nids came in and stuff like that. Oh my god, that Leviathan book was one of the best novels from launch I've read. And
I feel like that's partly because you're so invested in that universe that actually it meant something to you. I just don't think that exists in AOS.
Nah, and as we said, we're still early stages. AOS is still like a new baby, pretty much.
Yeah.
And it's still evolving slowly. But I feel like where I've been doing the hobby over like 20 odd years, 25 years, I'm heavily committed into the AOS fluff, and it's give credits where it's due. AOS do have some awesome stories in it, but it's like a needle in a haystack, if that makes sense.
Yes.
It's more character-driven stories, which AOS excels at, where you follow just two characters through the entire book, rather than on a grander scale of like you're on a realm of fire, and all of a sudden green lightning comes out, and it's so many characters. You're trying to remember their names and their names.
Yeah.
I swear to make these names up half the time. And you're like,
100%.
who am I with now? You're like, I swear I was with this person over here. Now I'm with a Stormcast Eternal on the other side of the city. You know, I'm like, you're just trying to compute. But where certain like who's that dwarf? Grimnar, not Grimnar,
Gotrek.
Yeah, where you just focus on him, and I think his new friend now is like a dark elf lady type thing, and just focus on them two. It's perfect. 40k on a grand scale has got it set to a T because you can easily envision it because it's a galactic scale, because it's not just one world, it's a system, if that makes sense. And you can easily picture that in modern terms with our system, like galaxy. You know, you can easily envision it's quite vast, it's got planets and stuff like that. It's the best, got best of both worlds. But I think as we both can probably agree, 40k is just far superior in lore fluff, because it's had
I would agree
20 odd years on prior to AOS.
Yeah, I mean, I as a last thing I'll say on the lore side, I don't read sci-fi of that sort of genre. Like Star Trek, almost never watched it. Anything like that, not that bothered. Star Wars got me a little bit, but I would always take Lord of the Rings over Star Wars and stuff like that. Like, I am fantasy through and through. I really, really enjoy the heresy side of things and some of the 40k stuff. I've really enjoyed those books, and they've hooked me. I'd like to say I've not even started an AOS book yet, because I'm not that invested in it.
You don't know where to begin, probably.
Well, yeah, that's part of it as well. But you could say that about Horus Heresy. Like, there's so many books there, but at least you kind of there's a starting point. Let's leave the lore. I'm going to go on to a really easy question, and I think every single message that I've had, pretty much, agrees with me and probably you. Who has the best models, Dave?
AOS, hands down.
AOS, easy. It's not even a hard question, is it?
No.
Before I started recording this, one of the things that I got up was the 2024 Miniature of the Year, and the Warhammer 40k one was the Night Lord Nemesis Claw.
And that's saying something.
The first place Sigmar one was Usheran, and then it was Vizix, and then it was Abraxia. Any three of those would wipe the floor with any of the models that came out for 40k this year. Like, hands down. And that includes, like, Asmodai, my boy, was fifth placed in the 40k one, in a circle with third. So there was a lot of Dark Angels this year, and I would say any of the top three for AOS would absolutely walk over almost any of those. AOS smash models, absolutely smash models. I think it's even close.
Yeah, and I think you're probably going to agree. When you paint a model and you can't stop painting it, as you saw in my Lioness, I painted that in a day.
Yeah,
I just couldn't stop. It was like, this is amazing. It's like, but with me with 40k, I can say, I'll do a bit here, I'll stop today, I'll do a bit here.
Yeah.
You know, it just doesn't grip you and stuff like that. But that's fair enough. I feel like where I think GW are trying to be too cautious with 40k, and they don't want to over detail it. I don't know why I say over detail it. The Rough Riders I've got fucking insane on detail. But
I don't think it's level of detail in the models. I think they both have really good level of details. This is a personal opinion, and I'm quite happy to be disagreed with. I think that the models tie really heavily into lore, and I think because 40k Heresy, yada yada, that universe is so set out and so well loved and defined by such a huge audience. The moment you try to move away from what that looks like, you just get nailed to a wall. The Primaris were a prime example of it. The introduction of the Primaris was huge. Everybody, like, so many people just hated it, absolutely hated it, because it was something different, and that wasn't even that big a change. I mean, good lord, you just made Marines bigger. You just made them a bit bigger. Like, they're still Marines. They're still visibly, like, if they'd have just, loads of people are like, oh, they should have just brought them out and just said they are like a new size of Marine rather than being Primaris. GW tried to move on the narrative, and people nailed them to the wall.
And I feel that's what they're too scared to branch out again in that way. Because where Space Marines are the poster boys of 40k, regardless if it's Horus Heresy or not, there's always Space Marines in the background somewhere.
Yeah.
And I think where they've been burnt heavily on that's it.
Yeah. I mean, look at Votann. So, like, you go into, like, the Votann communities, forums, yada yada yada. Forums. God, how old am I? Go into, like,
what's it?
You go to, like, Votann Reddits and things like that. So many people are calling out for a Dreadnought-esque Votann, not something completely new. They're going, I want a Dreadnought, but for Votann. And you're like, not like something completely different, something completely new. No, you just want to take what the Space Marines have got and turn into something. AOS, because that lore hasn't been established and probably isn't as well bought into by people, they can do whatever they want. They want. They gave 100%. Dragons to the Stormcast. Who saw that coming as a standard thing? We just have a completely allied army to the Stormcast, who are arguably your Space Marine equivalent, and they just went, nah, fuck it, put it on dragons. It's great.
Yeah. And I think where AOS is new, it's got that free reign of what it can do, and where 40k has, as we talked previously, it's got years of experience in fluff. They're quite restricted, sort of, in what they can do. You know, I feel like the only things they could have got free reign, roughly, is probably the Primarchs, if they come back. It's like
possibly, but even then, it's like, I mean,
it's like Fulgrim, for example. I never expected Fulgrim to look like that when they've revealed it for 40k. You know,
I kind of did. It's still, when they did Mortarion, they took Space Marine. Well, Magnus is kind of the same. Mortar is the prime. Took Space Marine, made him bigger, put some wings on, made him look dirty. Magnus is arguably sort of the same, maybe a little bit less. Angron was different. People know that I'm not really a fan of the Angron model as it. I love the Angron model. I would rather that be a Bloodthirster like a World Eater's Bloodthirster or something like that, not Angron. I think I would agree that the Primarchs need to stay fairly close to being Primarchs, because they're supposed to be such unique souls within it. It almost makes it weird to take them too far away. So I wasn't too surprised by Fulgrim. That's kind of how I imagined how it'd look. But bring out a new Greater Demon. Do whatever the hell you want with it. Look at Venom Crawlers. Like, Venom Crawlers were like a brand new thing in 8th edition. They were really cool. They didn't really come from anywhere. There was no real locked in lore on that. Chaos feels like the prime place you can do it. 40k, start to take Mechanicum away from doing the same crap over and over and over again. Give them that freedom to start engineering something different, and they'll come up with something different. So it feels like they could, but I feel like people wouldn't like it in the 40k universe.
Yeah, I feel like they tried to test it with the Go Gadget Legs one from the...
That was the worst. That was like the worst option.
Yeah.
I really liked, the ones with wings. I thought they were fantastic. Really loved those. The extender legs.
I thought that's probably the second time they tested the water, and it backfired quite badly. And because, as you said, I feel like where Mechanicum has got that, and like Chaos, they've got that door they can access. Like, they've got free reign. Well, not free reign, but the option to add stuff, like the Spider, Venom Crawler.
Bashtor is another good example, actually, as well.
Yeah, absolutely, like that one. And yeah, sorry 40k, but I think AOS just blows you out of the water.
I'll give 40k lore hands down. I'm definitely going to give AOS models hands down. I think there's... Yeah. Nobody's going to fight me on this. Every single time I say it, I'm like, look, if you want to, come and fight me on this. AOS have got better models. I've said it so many times now, literally nobody's going to come and fight me. So I'm quite happy to sit on that. Right. Everyone agrees with me. Nobody disagrees with me, and I'm happy to take that line. So yeah, I think the outcome of our conversation is probably sitting us on the fence. Neither is better in the overarching thing. Both have massive merits to it for completely different reasons. They are completely different, and they are both fantastic in their own way, and they're both rubbish in their own way. So
absolutely. So
yeah, let's sit on the fence.
I'd say stop hating and just start enjoying it.
Yeah, go out. You want to go and paint some cool models, go and do some AOS.
Absolutely.
You want to go and get engrossed in lore, go into 40k and just go and literally pick a book from the Black Library. Almost doesn't matter which, and just go with it.
Yeah, just don't be one of those people.
Yeah, don't be a dick. It's rule number one for everything.
Exactly.
So yeah, we picked the first topic being AOS versus 40k, the super thing that everyone's going to disagree on, and basically we sat on the fence and went, yeah, we don't know. They're both as good as each other.
Of all that, nothing.
Yeah, we will take an opinion on some of these every now and again, but yeah, I don't know if you had any sort of last things to sort of talk about on that before we sort of talk about what the next one is.
I feel like we've almost beaten a dead horse now. I think we've talked as much as possible.
Nobody ever needs to talk about this topic ever again. We've done it. If anybody asks a question, just send them here. We've talked about it all. Just don't bother.
Or just redact it now as Inquisition. Just be done with it.
Yeah, every 40k player, don't go and listen to that. Yeah. So, do you want to talk about what we're doing? What we're going to be doing in the next one?
Yeah. So we would like to throw this topic for next podcast, which will be the beginning of it'll be, when would it be out? Be episode 4, won't it? Because it'll be
episode 3. So this is episode 2. So this should be coming out in about a week and a bit's time. So it should be sort of start of February. So once we've recorded this, we'll put it out on our Instagrams and stuff like that. But yeah, it should be we'll record in a couple of weeks. So a couple of weeks from now we'll record. So yeah, we'll put it out there. But
the next topic for the podcast will be, as Ben said, maybe in a couple of weeks. I feel like it's quite a good topic to talk about. It's hobby burnout. So everyone, I'm quite known for it, for hobby burnout. But me and Ben would like you guys, whoever listens, probably no one, but we like to think
2 hours in at this point, nobody's listening, so it's fine. We can say whatever we want.
So we'd just like to throw that idea about hobby burnout. Have you experienced it? How did it materialise? How did it affect you and stuff like that? And most importantly, I think it's how you can break the cycle and how to get yourself back on the hobby train, if that makes sense. If it's just doing one colour, books is quite a cool one. You download Audible and do that. We'd just like to hear your
You're
thoughts.
spoiling the next one. Don't give them too many tips.
Oh, all right. Censor that one out. It's fine.
Yeah, I'll just like make it buzz. Just do it that way.
I just swore. It's fine. So yeah, just DM me or Ben via Instagram, or leave a comment on YouTube or Spotify, wherever this goes out into the ether. And yeah, so it'd be cool if you guys can interact and get your views to us, and we'll talk about our personal views ourselves. I'm sure Ben will do as well, because we will experience it, being parents ourselves and kids and other stuff. And yeah, I feel like should cover the whole topic of it. So hobby burnout, give us your thoughts and stuff, and we'll be on it.
Yeah, it's when we started talking about the change to the podcast, this was like one of the sort of first ones we talked about doing, but definitely it was sort of Dave's idea to then throw it out to the community, because it's such a wide ranging topic, and everybody has been subjected to hobby burnout at some point. It'd be really, really nice to sort of get your feelings on it. And like Dave says, like, how do you break out of it? How do you stop it? That's always a really interesting one. Is like, obviously you can go for ages without having any hobby burnout. But yeah, what are those little tricks, techniques that you do to keep yourself hobbying and stuff like that? I'm really looking forward to that. It should be a really, really interesting conversation. It's quite a personal conversation, it feels. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. So yeah, that we'll put that on Instagram and stuff like that. So yeah.
So watch the space and get involved, all one team
for sure,
and all that. So
yeah, definitely. And that's it. I'll do this sort of standard outro, but yeah, obviously it's personally, Dave, it's been really nice to get back on the podcast train. And I appreciate the efforts and the stuff you've had to go through to cope with me.
I know, right?
I asked you to do this, and then I disappear for months at a time. Yeah,
such a hero I am. Yeah.
Yeah, you managed to cope with me being croaky to you on the other end, being like, "Oh, please don't make me do it." I appreciate the patience.
It's like a hobby wife, isn't it?
just deal with me. Just go and sit in the corner. I will come back to you when you're legible. Like we'll have a conversation then. But yeah, I've enjoyed it. It's been really nice to get back on it and do it. And hopefully, sort of everyone that's listening up to this point, I hope you really enjoyed it too. It's still fun to make, and it's been a good laugh.
It's great to be.
If you want to leave a comment, if it's not about hobby burnout and just about the topics we talked about in general, but if you've got any particular 40k versus AOS takes that we didn't talk about, because the people will still have more opinions, feel free to comment those or ping us some messages. Obviously, if you're on YouTube, put it in the comments. Me and Dave go through those and answer everything that we can on those ones. You can do it on Spotify. I get all of those ones, so I can check all of those as well and sort of talk about it. Come and get us, obviously, on Instagram. So I'm First Rank Fire. Dave is Dave Hobby Corner. Come and get us. We message everybody, don't we? Let's be honest. We just want to talk.
Absolutely. So we'll try to message everyone if you respond, but don't take no hard feelings if we don't, because we do have real lives, unfortunately, outside this hobby.
Yes, unfortunately, I have a family to look after. And I would absolutely love it, and I need to push it more if you'd come over to the First Rank Fire Discord. It's a really fun little place. We've got some new people, so Dave's partners just joined as well and stuff like that. So it's a really nice little community. There's been some new people who've come in recently and sharing some really, really cool work, some really fun work. There's quite a variance in there. It's a nice little community that's been built up.
Absolutely, yeah. So get on it.
Please do. And yeah, that's it. I really appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.
See you next week or a couple of weeks. Ciao.
Bye.